Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 here on O'Connor and Company. I'm Larry O'Connor, the Aaron Rodgers of talk radio. Apparently my best years are behind me. That's Julie Gunlock. I kind of love Jets fans. I mean, it's fabulous.
You set that up yesterday. So funny about the American flag running in, and then
he's out for the season now. He's out for the season. That was the thing. The Jets fans yesterday were like, okay, all right, it's just a setback, but he'll be back in, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Out for the season.
Oh.
Coming up at 7:35, Max Eden on the hearing on book banning yesterday that sort of took a turn for the Democrats who wanted to vilify Republicans. At 8:05, Tom Newmark on the National School Walkout, and then Susan Friccio will join us at 8:35. And joining us right now, Dr. Robert Malone, as there is much more to discuss with Dr. Malone. We just had him on last week, and just in 7 days, Dr. Malone, so much has developed with regard to COVID-19, the CDC, and now the CIA. Thanks for joining us, sir.
My pleasure.
So your book is called Lies My Government Told Me and the Better Future Coming. And now, according to the CIA whistleblower, the CIA was involved in one of these big lies. According to this very credible witness, the CIA awarded 6 analysts financial incentives if they changed their findings. They were supposed to find out the origins of the COVID-19 virus. They came back and said it came from this lab in Wuhan. And upper management or somebody in the CIA gave them money to change the findings. How do you react to that, given everything that we've been through with this virus?
So, first off, my understanding is there's actually 2 study groups that were set up by the CIA to make a determination about the origins of the virus. And one was pre-assigned to investigate the thesis that it came from the lab, the other that it was of natural origin. This is obviously troubling. This appears to be the group that was assigned to look in the laboratory origin. And my belief has been for quite a long time that this is pretty convincingly of laboratory origin, but that if the United States acknowledged that and China acknowledged that, there would be an enormous wave of liability and political consequences. So they had to do anything they could to cover it up. What's fascinating here is we have some of the details of the willingness of the agency to cover this up on behalf of the government. If you think it through, can you imagine the legal liability globally if there's clear documentation that the U.S. funded the development of it?
Sure. Well, and you're right, 100%. And leaving aside that part of it, though, which is huge, there's other ramifications here. And let me start with, because you'll hear people say, oh, what difference does it make? Let's just move on. With regard to determining the appropriate treatment, I'm asking you to put your doctor's hat on here. With regard to the appropriate treatment for this virus, or potentially an actual vaccine that might be a little bit more effective than what we're dealing with right now, or that sort of thing, how important is it to know whether this naturally occurred or was laboratory engineered? I mean, I would think that would make a big part of the decision-making process on how to address this and stop it.
I think where that would really make a difference, and it would be a little bit at the margins, would be the realization that the engineering had occurred with this furin cleavage site, which the CIA and the internal officialdom was denying was the case in January, February, and March of 2020. So knowing that this had been intentionally engineered to enable human infectivity absolutely could have had an impact on how this was managed. But I think for the most part, in terms of your audience, I don't think that this really would have made a whole lot of difference in the cascade of really mismanagement that we saw medically and otherwise.
Well, it also made a difference politically in that when President Trump was saying, the China virus, or he was, saying that this was a lab leak, I mean, he definitely indicated that this was, a Chinese government, pandemic. He was, called xenophobic. He was called a racist. And so, this certainly strengthened those allegations, or at least gave some weight to those allegations.
Absolutely. So there's that angle. And there's also, of course, the angle that he was vilified for saying that the case fatality rate or death rate associated with this virus was far less than 1%, when all of the officialdom was saying that it was 3.5%. Turns out that Mr. Trump was correct. But we've kind of seen this whole story play out again and again, where Mr. Trump made statements and he was vilified in the press, only later to be confirmed as accurate in his comments. And the thing about calling it the China virus, what this would imply, this apparent testimony to the House Select Committee, is that our government was well aware very early on that through their funding and technology transfer activities, which were largely managed by the CIA, that's come out repeatedly, they had enabled the development of a weaponized coronavirus, which in some way entered the population, and they did so in collaboration with the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the CCP. And that's a story that has been, I've heard through multiple separate channels, that this is in fact what transpired, and that part of the driver was that the Central Intelligence Agency had lost a lot of its human intelligence assets in China because of some internal leak that caused them to all get killed.
Wow. It sounds like you're pretty plugged in on this CIA story, Dr. Malone. I appreciate you shedding a little bit additional light on it for us. This is something that we're going to watch intently. I'd love for you to comment on another aspect of what our government did. Again, his book is called "Lies My Government Told Me," and I really commend his Substack to you too. Dr. Robert Malone's Substack is chock full of good information. The Biden administration just lost a suit that was brought by the attorney generals of Missouri and Louisiana, having to do with their participation in censoring and pressuring social media companies to suppress information about COVID-19, whether it was the vaccine or other treatment options, that went against what the Biden administration determined was the only thing you were allowed to talk about. And the CDC director, former CDC director, Dr. Robert Redfield, said that the attempts to suppress all of that information, you were one of the voices that was being suppressed, Dr. Malone, that the censorship itself is part of was really one of the main factors in keeping people from seeking treatment, seeking vaccines, getting shots, even people that maybe the shot would have made sense for. I don't know. They were hesitant to do it because of the efforts to silence. In other words, you saw that people were told, you're not allowed to have that opinion, you're not to voice that opinion, you're not allowed to say these things, and that actually, it fed into people's suspicions about this thing. I'd love for you to elaborate on this, because I think it's such an important point.
I agree with you. The suppression of information all across the board was cohesive, amazingly organized, and global, as was the gaslighting and coordination with corporate media, partially facilitated by the Trusted News Initiative. There are credible estimates of something in the range of 300,000 plus deaths, excess deaths that were avoidable because of the suppression of early treatment. Wow. So that's what the estimates that I've seen from credible analysts.
That's a stunning number, and I want to continue to do some research on that as well, as everyone should research on their own. We live in the information age, and there's great opportunities for all of us to educate ourselves on these things, if only the government would get out of the way and let us use our brains. Dr. Robert Malone, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Wish we had more time. Hopefully we'll have him back again soon. Again, check out his Substack. It's really, really good information. It's 7:16.
Your favorite WMAL shows when you want them. Download the new WMAL app and listen on demand.
No books are being banned in the United States of America. We have a First Amendment. You can write whatever book you want. You can publish whatever book you want. You can sell whatever book you want. You can buy whatever book you want. We are having a debate in this, community by community is having a debate right now where those discussions should be had about whether certain books are age appropriate in our public libraries.
Totally
for our children.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Totally important, necessary conversations.
Yeah. And so, of course, Democrats in the Senate decided they were going to have a hearing on book bans. Max Eden was one of the witnesses, and I don't think this is exactly how Dick Durbin and Mazie Hirono expected the conversation to go. Listen.
To put it bluntly, books aren't being banned, and it's good that they are. The media keeps using the word banned, but that word doesn't mean what you think it means. In common usage, banned means made unavailable, yet the most banned genderqueer is still available on Amazon. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for Ryan Anderson's When Harry Became Sally. Only books on one side of that issue, it seems, actually get banned. Rather, this conversation focuses on school library availability. If ban means made unavailable, then virtually every book ever published has been effectively banned in school libraries. But that's not even what this word means here. Indeed, a book can be both banned and totally available in a school library. That's because the media has accepted the expansive definition of ban offered by PEN America. If a book has been taken off the shelves, reviewed, and placed back on the shelves, it has, according to PEN, been banned. If a school places a parental permission requirement on a book, it has, according to PEN, been banned. If a school moves a book to a guidance counselor's office, it has, according to PEN, been banned. In their report, Banned in the USA, PEN draws parallels in all this to Nazi Germany. Now, my public school library didn't carry Mein Kampf. Was it banned? I don't know. But I do know that I've read a few books about this era since, and I've so far missed the part where the Nazi Party forced schools to relocate books to guidance counselors' offices. To provide a linguistically honest account, the Heritage Foundation's Jay Green, Madison Marino, and I set out to assess how many of the 2,532 books in PEN's 2022 report that were labeled as banned were actually removed from school libraries. We did this with one simple trick. We checked the card catalogs. As it turns out, nearly 3/4 of the books that PEN labeled as banned were still in school libraries.
It's so brilliant. Max Eden will be our guest coming up at 7:35 to expand on this further. But I know that you were impressed by how this went. Again, Democrats set this up, and then it ended up being really a Republican-dominated hearing, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, the witnesses that the Democrats called were just weak and looked crazy, by the way. So one of them was in a purple. Was it a purple suit?
A purple suit with a yellow tie.
Yeah. So the optics were not great. And it was just fact after fact after fact, undeniable fact from the witnesses on the Republican side.
And Senator John Kennedy did what needs to be done at these moments because it's all very amorphous and people don't realize at a granular level exactly what content we're talking about. So he read from one of the books.
He did.
In the open hearing.
He did.
Would you like to hear it?
I would not like to hear. I'm like struggling because I think it's so grotesque because he's reading directly from one of these books. By the way, I think it's
incredibly
important.
uncomfortable
Hold on.
to
It's
hear.
really important. These books are in children's libraries. They are being handed to 8, 10, 12-year-olds.
Yep.
And we cannot say the words on the air because we would be fined.
Right. And Senator Kennedy is being criticized for reading it in an open hearing. And by the way, for everybody who says, well, my kid won't check it out because they won't bring it home. They don't have to check it out. When they have their time at the library, they can go to the library, they can pull the book off the shelf, they can read it, they can look at it, they can get everything they need out of it and then put it back on the shelf and you'll never know.
Any of these blue-haired moms demand action moms
Yes.
who want their children to read this filth and smut, you can get it on Amazon.
Buy it for your kid. Go for it. Here's Senator Kennedy letting everybody know exactly what we're talking about.
All boys aren't blue. And I will quote from it. I put some on and got him on his knees. And I began to into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he He asked me to turn over while he slipped on himself.
If I could tell you what Julie Gunlock's face looks like right now, as that black. This goes on, by the way, for quite some time. And people on the left, people in the media, liberals in the media were like, I can't believe Kennedy. What's wrong with John Kennedy? Why is he doing it to John Kennedy? They're the people who want your children to have that book.
They want your children, and they want you to not know that your children have that book.
And do I have to? I have a little time. I got to end with this. Mazie Hirono, who I believe you would understand. I believe she leads the Democrats' Mensa chapter there in the United States Senate. They have meetings on a weekly basis. She figured out with her witness there, Emily Knox, associate professor at the University of Illinois. They figured out what the real problem here is from conservatives. Guess what's really behind all of this?
Can you tell me what sorts of books are usually get on these banned book lists?
Yeah, I would say that, thank you for the question. So the books that usually show up on banned books lists are books that we consider to be diverse. And these are basically books about anybody who is not white, heterosexual, male, cis.
There you go. It's racism. That's what's really behind it.
That's right.
You're not trying to protect the innocence of children and have a parent's voice determining whether these books are age appropriate. No, you're just a white supremacist.
That's right. You don't want children seeing pornographic images and depictions of rape and
you just don't want pornographic images of black people.
You're a racist church lady.
There you go.
There you go.
No, I'm glad we finally got to the bottom of it. God bless the Democrats. It's 7:24. I want to tell you about Renter's Warehouse. Listen to me, please, because if you're thinking about renting out your property, please think long and hard about this, because I've done it before, and it's a nightmare. All right, you need Renter's Warehouse. Renter's Warehouse is all you have to do. You call Renter's Warehouse. They're more than a lot of companies out there. It's like, we'll find you the best tenant. Okay, then what? No, Renter's Warehouse, that's just the beginning with Renter's Warehouse. They help you find the best tenant. Then they collect the rent. Then they take care of all your accounting and your paperwork. Then they take care of your inspections. And then they take care of your maintenance coordination, including those late-night phone calls. Do you know what you have to do once you get Renter's Warehouse on your side? All you have to do is check your app for your bank account and make sure that the check cleared. That's your responsibility. Renter's Warehouse is a trusted partner of those who serve. Military discounts are available, so if you're in the military, you need to relocate, Renter's Warehouse is going to handle everything fast. Find out how much your property will rent for. Get a free rental analysis from Renter's Warehouse, 571-517-1525. 571-517-1525, rwdcnova.com. 725. Now WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5.
You're so mean.
It's 7:37 here on this super busy Wednesday morning. Coming up in our big 8 o'clock hour, we're going to start things off with Tom Newmark on the National School Walkout that's scheduled for tomorrow. And then at 8:35, Susan Ferruccio of the Washington Times on the pending impeachment process that will begin today in the House of Representatives. That's all coming up. I'm Mary O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Julie.
Good morning.
You were furiously texting everybody that works on this program about the brilliant testimony of Max Eden yesterday during that hearing on the Senate. And so how fortunate are we that Max Eden joins us now? He's a research fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he focuses on education reform. Max, great job yesterday in what I was told was going to be a book banning hearing, but you sort of destroyed that mythology pretty early on. Well done, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks so much for having me on.
So the Democrats thought they were going to get a lot of traction out of this by saying those crazy conservatives, they're trying to ban books. But what is this really all about, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is really all about parents realizing that a number of books that contain very sexually explicit and I think, pretty easily, arguably pornographic materials have made their ways into school libraries. And once parents become aware of the specific content, they think, okay, well, this is just not something that I necessarily want lying around in my child's public school. And I think we kind of saw from the hearing, it's one of those arguments where when you first hear it, oh, book banning, I don't like that. And, probably 95% of people would say no to that. But then when you actually read the passages and parents realize it, probably 95% of them would be like, yeah, no, I don't want that in school, though.
I felt like Senator Kennedy when he wasn't reading from the book and making everyone uncomfortable. I think he really sort of drilled down, if I may say, on the real issue here. And that is who decides. Somebody is deciding what books are appropriate and what aren't. somebody is deciding what books will be available to our children and what are. Otherwise, every school library would be voluminous. It would be giant. Every book would be available. So I guess I'll ask you the question. Who should be? Is it the librarian who decides? Is it the school superintendent? What role do parents have in this? And as Democrats were saying yesterday, is it the reality that one angry parent can make the call for the entire community? Is that what we're going toward?
Oh, no. I mean, that was an absolutely spurious, kind of, I think, pretty much disingenuous argument, right? There is no democratic system wherein a single parent complaining automatically bans a book. What happens when a parent sees a book of the sort that Senator Kennedy that I read is that they say, hey, I'm not sure if I want that. Then it goes in front of a review committee. And then in many cases, the school board votes on it, which is exactly what should happen, right? I mean, the decision should come down to the publicly elected representatives who the community says want to run their schools. So it's not the librarian, who may be a perfectly lovely person, or who may be, in the case of the head of the American Library Association, a self-avowed Marxist, and that librarian can certainly make an initial decision, but the Constitution does not appoint them plenipotentiary power to decide what your child reads, nor does it appoint a random parent with that power. It appoints school boards who parents elect in order to kind of represent and impart community standards. And that's just not a point that I think is controversial to anybody.
Max, it even goes beyond. It goes even further back. There's a organizational system called Follett's Destiny, and it is the categorization system that school librarians use to determine what a book is categorized, essentially. And for instance, in Nora Roberts' book, they called it an adult book. So librarians are actually given guidance. It's just not arbitrary. They're given guidance using Follett's Destiny to figure out what books are adult and which ones are appropriate for minors. Are people not aware of that? Because I do think that that's important. That essentially, if a librarian goes to Follett's Destiny, sees that a book is categorized as adult, and decides for that reason it doesn't have a place in the library, is that banning? I mean, is Follett's Destiny in the practice of banning a bunch of books that should be accessible for children?
No, I mean, that's not banning. None of this is actually banning, right? As I said in my testimony, if by ban you mean kind of made unavailable in a school library, then at a certain point, like nearly every single book that has ever been published in the history of mankind has been effectively banned from a school library. For some reason, the left is freaking out when instead of the decision being made beforehand, the decision is made after parents get more information, and then parents have a say in that selection process. But no, there's no principal difference between deciding that, say, a Hustler or Playboy is inappropriate before making a purchase decision, and deciding that Hustler or Playboy is inappropriate after making a purchase decision.
Max Eden is a research fellow at American Enterprise Institute. He was one of the key witnesses yesterday in this Senate hearing about the move to sort of have some extrajudicial examination of what books are available in public schools, considering some of the books that have slipped through the cracks, as it were. Mr. Eden, one of the arguments that I hear is that if you leave it up to school boards, that means that we'll have community standards that are different. Like what a suburb of Arkansas, of Little Rock, Arkansas might decide is inappropriate there will be very different than what the school board in Manhattan determines is inappropriate. And so now you've got these differing community standards determining how children will be educated. Maybe they'll decide that, To Kill a Mockingbird is inappropriate, or some other classic piece of literature.
Beloved. They love to use Beloved.
So how do you respond to that concern?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they will decide that To Kill a Mockingbird is inappropriate, and they have decided that in liberal school districts like Burbank, California. And, that's a decision that I personally think is profoundly misguided, and I would not want to send my kid to a school district that bans To Kill a Mockingbird. But I'm still comfortable with a community of people who I don't know and who don't reflect my values, and who have very different values than mine, having those values imparted through the public school system. There's this degree of pluralism and tolerance that should be accepted by the American public, because that's the system that we live in. That's what our democracy is all about. And there seems to be a kind of a one-way problem that people on the other side have on this issue. It's fine for us to do it with To Kill a Mockingbird, but heaven forbid they do it with genderqueer.
Right.
Max Eden, great stuff. Thank you for being there yesterday and being such a clear voice. It really was appreciated, and we look forward to seeing more of your work.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Thank you all.
It's 7:40. The latest on crime in the Washington District of Columbia. You heard me talking to Cal Thomas. It really is a great column that he wrote. It's like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You arrest people, you convict them swiftly so it's not drawn out, and they're punished.
Yeah.
And crime will go down every single time. That's what works. They refuse to do that here in the District of Columbia.
It's the same thing with violence in schools. As soon as these restorative processes were employed into the schools, violence got worse. You don't punish people. There's no consequences. It's going to get worse.
This has been brewing really since the summer of 2020 with the George Floyd riots, the defund the police, painting Black Lives Matter on the streets. That's where it began. And it's continued. We've been talking about it. We've been telling you about the incidents. We've been telling you the rise in all of these various things. Now, suddenly, literally over 2 years later, the Washington Post. By the way, even before I get to the Washington Post, this entire time that we've been sounding this alarm and telling you about the horrific crime numbers that we're seeing right now, and we've heard from police, we've had police on the show, police have called in who can't identify themselves, who say, we've been told to stand down. This is and when we do that, we're called names. We're called alarmists. We're called, and it's funny when a city that has a majority black population like Washington, D.C., if you point out the crime, suddenly you're racist. It's like, no, actually the victims of crime are black. I'm trying to protect black people here.
And you couple that with the fear the police have of in any way doing something that looks racist or that appears inappropriate. I mean, there is great fear out there. There's viral videos. It is a problem.
So here's the Washington Post. A shaken Washington copes with surging violence.
This.
Quote, this is not normal. Unquote.
Thank you.
Finally.
400 years
surging
later.
Violence. It has surged, pal.
Yes.
It's been surging. Thanks. Welcome to the party. Washington, D.C., now so crime-ravaged, locals are driving tiny distances instead of walking. Homicides have spiked by 29% in just 1 year. So you got to go 3 blocks somewhere, you drive instead of walk.
Maybe they'll do something now that it could impact climate change.
Right, exactly. No, as long as you're driving your Tesla, it's okay, apparently. House committee now is warning staffers about how to stay safe in Washington, D.C. People who come here to do business with their elected representatives are unsafe. Can I say it? I've been saying it. I want to say it again. Home rule in the District of Columbia is a 50-year experiment that has failed. It's time for the House of Representatives to take back their constitutional role of 53 degrees at 7:56.
News is brought to you by New Look Home Design.
Hey, it's Larry for Renters Warehouse. Listen, managing a rental property can be tough. I know because I used to rent my own home. It was hard work and caused me lots of headaches. But here's how I learned to make renting and managing my property easy. You call Renters Warehouse. Renters Warehouse specializes in helping owners rent and manage their home for top dollar. Plus, with mortgage rates rising, now is a great time to profit with renting. Renters Warehouse will find the right tenant, collect the rent, take care of accounting, inspections, and maintenance coordination, including all those late-night phone calls. Leave the headaches to Renters Warehouse while you just collect the checks. Renters Warehouse is also a trusted partner for those who serve and provides military discounts. So if you're in the military and need to relocate, Renters Warehouse will handle everything fast. Find out how much your property will rent for. For your free rental analysis, call Renters Warehouse now. 571-517-1525. That's 571-517-1525. 571-517-1525. Or visit rwdcnova.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. HIMS.com/RADIO.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babbel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
And now, try Babbel free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Coming up in our 8 o'clock hour, we'll hear from Tom Newmark out of Fred